Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome everybody. I'm Mohamed Wahba, Revit expert. In this video, we'll learn how to estimate the quantities of columns here in my structure. As we've done previously, we estimated the volume and the quantities of our foundation, whether it is plain concrete or reinforced concrete. And we want in this video to estimate the volume and quantities of our columns. Firstly, we have to check here view shows schedule quantities as we've done before, and we need to choose the category of structural columns here. Some fields are very important here to be chosen here in my columns. For example, the count, and also the top level, volume, and also we can choose here the type. It's very necessary in my schedule. Also, those are the most salient fields here in my schedule. So I will sort those depending on some elements. I will choose here type to level to be at the first column, and then type, count, volume, and so on. As we've done before, we can sort our scheduling. We have to choose here top level firstly, ascending from the smallest to largest ones. So then we can choose here the type, for example, then volume, and so on. We don't want to make itemization for our instance, so I will deselect this element. So here we can get the total volume of my columns by choosing here calculate volume, and so on. We have now to choose OK and to get my schedule. Here we can see the sorted top level, as we can see here clearly in my schedule. Started with the grade level, and then first, second, and roof, and so on. If we want to change the volume of my change the units of my volume, we can check here unit format and deselect use project settings and choose, for example, cubic meter and to decimal places. Okay. If you want to make a separation between the levels as we've done before, we can choose here sorting and footer, and to make footer under the top level like this, and so on. We can see here the total volume after of every level here in my structure. Now let me turn over to talk about the scheduling of beams in my structure. We can check here, we can get here the 3D model my structure. The same order we can choose here. We can choose here volume, view, and schedule quantities, and then beams in my structure are the structural frame. Okay, we can select here the count, for example. We can select also the length. We can select also the reference level to know where it is this element or this beam. We can choose also the type and the volume of my frames. We can here rearrange our elements, count, length. We can make the type to be appear in the second column here, count, length, volume, and so on, and by pressing OK. to do the same order here as we've done before, we can choose here, for example, sorting, and to arrange and to sort those elements according to its level, and then type, and then volume or length, volume, and so on. Deselect items every instance, and formatting can select here the volume and to calculate it as a whole. We can make also a footer here. Here we can also change the units. We want also to get the total length by checking here formatting and to choose length to get the total one by selecting here fields and to deselect and exclude length. We have to check here OK. Like this, we can it can clearly appear that this element, two elements here has the same volume, and so on. 2 element, 3 element, and so on. We can make a separation as well to my scheduling to make a scheduling table for the foundation ones by checking here the project browser to rename it, for example, as a scheduling framing for the grid beam, and to duplicate this table like this, and to rename it as a beams only. If we want to exclude here in the beams, the grid beam, we can choose here sorting, filter, and to choose here reference volume, and to make doesn't equal the grid beam like this. We can can see all the beams in my structure with exception of the grid beams. We can make the same order here for the grid beam to exclude all the beams with exception of the grid beam by making the same order here, choosing filter and choose reference, and to select here equal to the grid beam only. Now I want to check with you important field here. If we want to get the surface area of the beams in my structure, if we open here fields, you can see here surface area. But if you want to make this order here in my structure, you have to make another equation. Equation But if you want to create this field here in my categories, you have to make this equation. But you can't do this equation unless you make or define the parameters of this equation. For example, if you want to get the surface area of the beam, you have to evaluate the parameters and the length of these elements. But unfortunately, it can't appear as well here in my available fields. So firstly I want to create and to make here in my available fields the width of the beam, the depth of the beam, beside as we put here before the length of my beams. So we want to share the dimensions of beam here in my available fields. To make this order, we have to get out of these elements and to open the family of our beams. For example, when I select this element, I can edit the family of my beam here, and to get the parameters of this beam by clicking here family types. As we can see here, it is the element, but if you want to change the units, firstly you can select UN and to make it, for example, meter and to decimal separator and 2 decimal places, like this. Let us check here this parameter of my beam by clicking here edit parameter. It can clearly appear here that is the element cannot appear in schedule or in schedules or tags. So I want to make a shared parameter to appear in my schedule. So I will choose here shared parameter and to select. Yes, we have to check here create to make the file of my parameters. I'll choose here for example the same folder of my project. I'll choose it, for example, beams parameter, and to save this file in my folders. Then I will create another group, a new group, and to create in this group 2 parameters B and H. B, and this type is length, okay, and to create another one H, okay. The previous one is B, so I will choose B here. As we can see here, the name has been written, so I will check here, okay. I will do the same order here for the parameter H, edit parameter, and to make a shared parameter to select and to select H, as we can see here, okay, and to load this file in my project. But because we have a different size in my structure, different sizes of my beams, I will select here overwrite the existing version and its parameter values. If we open the same schedule of my beams here, you can see here in the available fields B and H, because we made it shared parameters in my structure. So I will select it here, B and H. So to create the parameter of my beam, we can choose here add calculated parameter. For example, I will name this title this equation as parameter or beam parameter, and the output units here in my equation will be length. So I will select here length, then to write my equation. For example, the parameter of my beam is defined as 2 multiply, I'll select here my field B, for example, plus to multiply h. Here we made our parameter and our equation. To select here OK, then we can use this parameter to create another equation for getting and calculating our surface area of my beam. So I can select here another equation. For example, I will title it as a surface area, and the surface area have to be the surface area has to be the beam parameter multiply the length, but we have to select here the length. So I will get the length firstly in my equation function. Here we can select here the length multiply the beam parameter, like this. I will select here OK. No, but my but here it is area, so OK. We can now rearrange this those columns here in my schedule. So beam parameter and surface area can check here OK. Now you got the length, the parameter of my structure and the surface area of my structure, but it doesn't calculate it. Those fields are not calculated because we need to select here itemization of my fields here. As we can see, we can change this unit to be, for example, meter to decimal places here in my structure, as we can see here in my structure, and as well this is meter. So we get some useful parameters here in my schedule, in my framing schedule, by calculating the surface area of my beams, which will be useful in my structure to calculate, for example, the isolation area in on these beams if we want to make isolation in my beams. I will do the same order, which will be useful also here in my grid beam. We can make the same order here in my beam, or we can duplicate this element, this schedule. For example, I will delete this schedule and to rename it as a grid beam. And to exclude all the beams in my structure with exception of the grid beams, by selecting here filter and to select here equal, not doesn't equal, and to select here OK. It's here the surface area of my grid beams, which will be useful here in my structure to calculate the surface area of the isolation in my foundation in my grid beam. And to calculate the total surface area, we can check here formatting and to select here the total and surface area, and to select here to calculate totals like this. So the total surface area of my beam in my structure will be 209.99 meters square. Here we can do the same order here by calculating the surface area for my columns. By pressing here, I want to calculate here the surface area of my columns, particularly the columns here in the level of grade beams. So in the level of grade. So I can also duplicate this firstly to make schedule for columns in the level grid, and to make exception here by pressing filter and to choose only the columns in the grid level only, like this. So I want to create here the surface area of those columns. So I need to make a shared parameters of the dimension of my column. I will get out of this table and to choose any column in my structure and to open its family. And if you want to check and to change the units of your family, you can check here and to select B, and to make it shared parameter, select and edit, and to create another one for example columns parameter, another group for columns here, and to create two parameters, for example B, and it is length, new, H, okay. I opened before B, so I will select B here, okay, and select as well H, shared parameter, select H, okay, and okay. Load into my project and override the existing version and its parameters value. Let's turn over to open my structure column grid here, and to open the fields and to check here B and H in my schedule. I need also to get the length. So my function will be, for example, the surface area. I can make it I can make this equation here by pressing here for example 2 by B plus 2 by multiply H. I need to multiply all those values by the length. But the output unit will be area. Okay here and okay. Now we got my surface area. So I will change the units. As you can see here clearly in my table, this is the surface area of my columns only to the level of grade in my structure. If you want to get also the total surface area of my columns, you can check here formatting and surface area. You can select here calculate totals. So the total surface area of my columns to the grade level only will be 23.76 meter square. If you found this video useful for you, please like, share and subscribe my channel to get my latest tutorials, and you will find me below to reply your comments. Thank you very much.